All right. Awesome to be here. I'm really excited to be talking to you about one of my favorite topics, which is product. So the name of this talk is Stop Coding, You Have a Product Gap. My name is Sam Selikoff, if you don't know me, and you can find me on Twitter at Sam Selikoff, and I run a company called EmberCamp at ember.js. We make videos and podcasts and other stuff for Ember developers, so check it out if you haven't heard of it before. So, why did I come to a room full of coders, and why am I giving a talk called Stop Coding? Well, as engineers, we love coding, right? If you think about when we first started coding, it was so empowering. We had a problem, we learned HTML, we learned CSS, and we have a solution, right? We have some idea for something we want to build, and we learn these technologies, fire up our editors, and there you go. Next, we learn JavaScript. We start looking for things on Stack Overflow. And at the beginning of our careers, this is really kind of the pattern that we learn. Eventually, we learn higher level things like Bootstrap or even Ember. But basically, we are kind of reinforced over and over again that coding is the way to solve our problems. But there comes a point in everyone's career when you kind of encounter some new problems. So who here can relate to this? I've been in meetings at work all day. I have to code at night because that's the only time I get any real work done. Or this. I've got 3 different top priorities right now. People come to me because I get stuff done, but sometimes I have to stay late because I have so much on my plate. Or what about this? My team is understaffed. We have too much work to do, and we're not moving fast enough. We try coding at night. We try more coding for more managers, and we try more coding on more projects because code is what we know as a way to solve our problems. That's how we've gotten stuff done in the past. And so basically every new set of problems, we continue to try to use this method. If only we could become super coders. We could get all of our work done. We wouldn't need to expand our team, and all of our managers would be happy. So what if I told you that that's a myth? What if I told you that these symptoms, these pain points, are not caused by a lack of engineering resources, and that no amount of technical skills could solve these problems? What if instead I said that the root cause of all these problems is a product gap, and until you address your product issues, you're never going to get rid of these symptoms? So, what is a product gap? Well, to answer this, we first need to answer the question, what is product? And for the purpose of this talk, I'm going to break product down into 2 aspects. One is the product decisions that we make, so the actual product, the thing that we're building and shipping. And the other is the product process, so the process by which we make those decisions. And to understand a product gap, we first need to know what makes for great product decisions and what a great product process looks like. So, let's start by talking about product decisions. When we think of an actual product, we usually think of things like the hardware and software specifications. We think of maybe the functionality of a web app. And those are part of the product, right? But the product goes beyond those functional aspects. So let's talk about one of the best product companies in the world. So how did you feel when that logo just faded in? What gut feelings do you associate with Apple? If you reflect on those feelings, whatever they are, and how they differ from other products and other companies, you're starting to understand that there's more to product than the functional aspects. If we look at Apple's recent product launch, we'll see that what goes into an Apple product goes way beyond the hardware and software specs of the newest iPhone. They always start with a media event. They have tailor-made, really high-quality videos on Twitter and YouTube. Then they have a newly designed homepage, and not just one page. They have many pages talking about all the different aspects of the new devices. And then they have, of course, a whole checkout flow that is really polished. And together, these really make up the product. And again, these go way beyond just the functional aspects of the hardware and software. Now, another way to get at this, at the heart of what product really is to ask the question, what is Apple selling? And the answer is not just a phone, right? It's this idea that technology can seamlessly integrate with our lives in a way that adds value to what we do. And the people who compare the tech specs of an iPhone to the tech specs of another phone are kind of missing the point. They're kind of missing the reason why people choose iPhone. So bringing all this back to the software that you and I build, a great product is not just about the lines of code that we write. And we can ask the same of Ember, right? We can say, what is Ember selling? And the answer goes way beyond the lines of code in the ember.js repository. So when we think of great digital products, we need to think beyond the code. All right, so now we've talked about what a great product looks like, and let's switch over to what a great product process looks like. Now, when we think of a great modern software process, we usually think of things like iterative agile development, cross-functional teams, retrospectives. This modern workflow is being used by some of the best, most successful modern digital companies in the world today. And this process essentially boils down to this. This is from Eric Ries's The Lean Startup, and it's a cycle of build, measure, learn. The idea basically being that we build something, we put it out there, we measure its impact on our users, we get feedback, and we incorporate that, and we learn new things about what it is we're supposed to be building, and we kind of keep going in the cycle like that. So this is really this idea of treating software like an experiment and admitting that we don't know what needs to be built and not being surprised by customers asking for things that we hadn't thought of. So this is really what a great modern product process boils down to. Of course, there's many details here, but this is at a high level encapsulates it. So now that we know what great product decisions look like and a great product process looks like, we can answer the question, what is a product gap? A product gap is essentially when your team are making bad product decisions or you have a broken product process. And of course, these things are related and one can influence the other, but this is essentially what I mean when I say product gap. So why did I take the time to walk you through all these aspects of product and what it means to have a product gap? Well, it's because of this. The most important lesson about the product gap is that it exists anywhere code exists. And it cannot be filled by code. So to convince you of this, we're now going to look at several situations that have symptoms of a product gap. And we're going to do a root cause analysis of these situations. And we're going to do it through the lens of the product manager. So who here works with a product manager in their day-to-day job? Okay, cool. About half of you. So product management is a really important role on modern software teams. Product manager is essentially responsible for the success of a project. They represent the customer on the team, and their job is basically to help the team make great products and to put a great process in place. So they understand all these aspects of what a great product looks like and what a great process looks like. So let's take a look at some situations and see how a product manager would analyze them. So the first situation is coding at night. So again, have you ever thought, once I get home from work, I'm just going to go home. My coworker, I can just get them unstuck, right? If I just code a little bit more at night, I'm going to get them unstuck so they can move forward. And the problem with this, as we all know, is that once you do that once, you're never going to not be coding at night again, right? There's always more work to be done. There's always more to-dos. There's always more ways that you could be helping somebody. And so a product manager understands this. They understand that software is about trade-offs. And the root cause here is prioritization. they understand that maybe you're working on things at night because you think they're more important than what you're doing during the day. But if all of your tasks were to be prioritized, then everyone would be confident that what you're doing during the day is the most important thing you could be working on. Now, another reason sometimes people code at night is because they spend all day in meetings just getting clarity on what it is they actually need to do. And so the day is spent trying to get clarity on their actual engineering tasks, and then by the time they understand that, they can actually go home and get some work done. So again, a product manager understands this as well, and they understand that if engineers are spending time getting clarity meetings, they're not going to be coding. So one solution that product managers bring to software teams, a tactic that they have that can solve this, is a prioritized backlog. So this is a Trello board, and I've used this technique myself a lot over the past 2 or 3 years in personal projects, consulting projects. And so if you've never seen this before, Trello can do this, Jira can do this, but essentially the prioritized backlog comes down to actually explicitly surfacing all of your work, putting it in a single list, and ranking it. And again, this gets at this root issue of prioritization, because now if you have a task and it's at the top, everybody knows it's the most important thing. And once somebody drags something for you to do from, let's say, this prioritized backlog into up next, and they put it ahead of your previously most important thing, there's a very powerful visual communication that's it's shoving things down. And this kind of is a useful communication tool because it exposes the reality that people can only be working on one thing at a time, regardless of what you say or how many managers are bothering you, right? So if your engineers are going to be in meetings, that means they're not going to be coding. So you could have meetings on this board. You could have your coding tasks on this board. And again, it makes it very clear that you can only do one thing at a time, and that the prioritization decisions should be made explicitly. So that is one situation. Let's look at another situation. No visible progress. So have you ever worked on a team or a project? Maybe you've worked on a code, a feature for an app, or actually an entire application for weeks or for months, and you've been doing a lot of work on kind of the infrastructure. Maybe you've been building out components that are going to support the app. Maybe you've been setting up a CSS framework. Maybe you've been writing API endpoints, but you haven't made any visible progress. Someone who's not an engineer on the team is asking, like, when can I see part of this app? And just weeks go by or months go by, and you're doing work, but there's no actual visible progress from the perspective of the user. So a product manager would look at this and say, it's very easy for software teams to kind of heads down and get very focused on the technical things that need to be done, and to forget about the user value, the actual reason this application is existing in the first place, and therefore to not make any visible progress from the user's perspective. And it's also easy for teams to not be able to focus on slices of functionality that deliver user value, because again, they're thinking at a higher level. They're thinking about the foundation that's going to support this entire application. And a product manager would say that this is an issue with the process, and another solution, another tactic that they bring is this idea of building in slices. So what do I mean by that? This is actually Ember Maps, our little CMS that we built, and this is how we upload videos to the site. So this is like a pretty standard CRUD app. I'm sure lots of you have built things like this. Maybe you get mockups that look like this, and you can actually just start seeing the database tables in something like this, right? There's series. A series has many clips. A clip has details and a transcript. It has encodes. So, things have positions. You might even see the Ember components that you're going to end up building for this interface, right? You can see like a table and a list item. So as engineers whose job is to implement something like this, we look at the app that we're going to build and we start thinking about the implementation. And so maybe you've worked on projects where you build the backend, the database tables, the API endpoints, then you build your Ember app and you put it all together. And again, this is where this problem comes, where you have no visible progress for a long period of time, and maybe people in your organization can you can lose some trust with them that way. And so what does building in slices mean? The idea with building slices is that we focus on a single slice of user functionality at one time, and we build it end to end, completely end to end. And we don't say it's done until it's actually done and the user can actually use it. So for this app, it might look like uploading a video, right? That's like one of the main pieces of functionality. And so if you think about what goes in uploading video, you have the UI part, right? The button that lets you upload, but you also have, maybe you have Amazon that's gonna serve up the video and encode the video. And we have a backend API endpoint that we're gonna hit to upload the video. And these things need to be wired up and put in a staging or production environment. And then we need a user, even if they're an internal user, but somebody to actually try this feature out. And so building in slices is very powerful because a product manager understands that there's lots of hidden complexity throughout our projects. And that we can just, as an Ember developer, we can focus on the front end and bang that out, no problem, get that done with. But there's going to be integration complexities that exist when we try to wire things up with the back end, with S3, once someone actually uses it and we get feedback. So the idea is to surface those complexities at the beginning of the project by building in slices. In this way, the team can focus, and you can also deliver some user value. Someone asks you, what did you guys do this month? Then you can actually see. You can actually go and use the application and upload a video. You know, we came into a project once that had like 300 Jira tickets, and the goal was like, let's just finish these tickets. We just need to add people to the project, and we know what we have to do. The requirements are set. Once we finish these 300 tickets, the project will be done. And again, it was this situation where the team had been working for a long time and felt like they were moving an inch in every direction. And just being able to look at those tickets and say, okay, what's the most important page of this application? What's the most important slice of functionality? Okay, it's this part, this page. Let's get all the tickets related to it and just focus on that. The front-end team, the back-end team, we don't move on until we ship this. And you will learn so much by doing this. It really helped bring momentum to the project and help get the team kind of unstuck and not feeling like they're moving an inch in every direction anymore. There's a great blog post from EmberCamp that talks about some of this product stuff. And here's a quote. It says, every iteration in a product or even a feature must deliver value, both to the customer and to the business. And we know there's infrastructure work that has to be done to support whatever it is we're doing, but the idea is that we can always tie that back to some customer value and build in slices. So I think this quote captures this really nicely. All right, last situation. Unused features. So have you ever worked on an app? Maybe you built an app and you shipped it and you're maintaining it and you realize that basically your users are only using 10% of the features. A product manager would see this as a problem with the product decision side, right? The actual product. There's a mismatch here between what we're building and what our users are actually getting value from this piece of software. Now the root cause here, the one I want to talk about, is using engineering as discovery. And the fix is to find cheaper ways to discover our user features. So what do I mean by using engineering as discovery? Well, we often tend to think of building software in two phases, right? We have design and we have engineering. And engineering is by far the most costly phase of development. That's why I've made this much bigger than the design phase. Design can be expensive, but relative to software, the engineering part is the big one. But product managers know that there's actually a third aspect of software projects. And that is the actual product decisions that are made. And what can happen if teams aren't deliberate about making those decisions up front is that these decisions can get embedded into the design and engineering phases of a project. And the problem with this is if the team makes bad product decisions. Because if we take the time to design and engineer an entire feature or even an entire application only to find out that we made a bad product decision, now we have to go back to the drawing board. And we have to do this over and over again. We have to go through this very costly phases of design and engineering just to test out a new product decision. And again, product managers understand this. So the picture that product managers really want to see looks something like this. They want to pull those product decisions out of the design and engineering phases and surface them ahead of time and end up with a picture that looks something like this, where those decisions can be made much more cheaply. So what does this look like? Well, it might just look like getting everybody in a room and talking about what it is we're actually going to build, right? Let's say we're talking about adding a feature to Instagram that's, I can like a photo. Okay, so what does that look like? What is the interaction like? Do I tap something? Do I tap a menu? Do I double tap it? Can I like my own photo? What happens if I try to do that? What happens if I try to like a photo that I've already liked? And the idea here is you can imagine building all those things would take a long time, right? We can iterate on our product decisions much more quickly in other ways than design and engineering. So the way I use this technique recently this year, this is an Ember app I built. It was an internal application for a company, but this is actually not an Ember app. This is a prototype made with Sketch. If you look in the URL there, this is sketch.cloud. This is really cool. When you make a bunch of screens in Sketch, you can upload it to Sketch Cloud and add links that link one screen to the next. And we were able to put this prototype in front of our actual client and get them to use it and learn so much about what it is we were actually building. We could ask them, hey, go to a subscription, add a subscription, try creating a new product. Does that kind of match what you're expecting to do here? And just by watching them use this, we were able to learn so much. And so this is an example of a cheaper way we can discover those product features that our users actually want than by building it. So this is really powerful. And just in case you're thinking, well, that was like a big prototype, isn't that a lot of stuff? Didn't you just say you want to build in slices? We're still doing this per slice. So that was the prototype kind of at the end. But throughout the entire project, we would do one feature at a time, prototype it, iterate on it using feedback, and then go build it. And so the picture still looks like this. So we're still doing this kind of build, measure, learn per slice of the application. And this is more familiar, looks more like agile iterative development that we're used to. So prioritize backlog, building in slices, cheaper discovery. These are some of the ways that product managers fix and prevent product gaps from happening. And they really work because these are about surfacing these deeper issues like prioritization, estimation, and discovery. So at this point, you might be asking yourself, I'm an engineer. Why should I care about any of this? I'm not a product manager. The thing is that the product gap exists anywhere that code exists. So whether you're working on a project at work, or you're working on open source on a project like Ember, or you're working on a personal project, these deeper issues can come up in any of these situations. So let me tell you a story about an add-on I maintain, which is Mirage, and how these lessons help me identify and fix product gaps in Mirage. So if you look at Mirage's homepage right now on GitHub, you'll see it has 20 open issues and 18 pull requests. And it wasn't always that low. That's still pretty high a little bit, but we'll see in a second. It looks even better than that. About a year and a half ago, when I started working on EmberMap and got busy with other things, as anyone who maintains open source knows, these things can really get away from you. We had like 80 or 90 issues on Mirage, and the time I would make to work on it, I would go in and open up the issues, and I would see bugs from 2 or 3 years ago. I would see someone working on a feature request that they really cared about 3 days ago that I wanted to get back to. And so it was overwhelming. It was really hard to know where best to put my efforts and what to do to make an impact on people who are using Mirage, because it was just this massive, unprioritized list of to-do items, right? So now when you look at the issues, we have this kind of tagging system. And we all know about tags, but there's a difference between just doing tags because you're doing them and doing them in a way that works for you. And so I found this system using bugs, features, and questions, going through and taking the time away from writing code to triage the issues and add these labels made it much easier to understand what the high priority items were. And now I can just go to the pull request, let's say, because we also use the labels there. And I can say, choose labels for bugs, and I can just see what are the oldest bugs that are the PRs, and I can know what to work on. This is a candy board that we use for feature requests. So now we pull feature requests out of the issues into that candy board, which lets people upvote them. So now if I fixed all the bugs, I can look at the candy board and see what are the most upvoted features. And that tells me right away, I can just come and say, look, people want fast boot support and better add-on support. And I can just know that that's like the most important feature that people are waiting for. So being able to just filter these down and understand the priority, I can look at the oldest bug very easily. And being able to look at the candy board to see what features people want has made such a difference. I mean, in the last 2 months, I was able to get rid of so many old bugs, and we just have a few things that have popped up now, but I'll actually be able to ship a 1.0 soon. And I really feel like I've been able to build momentum, even though I've had about the same amount of time to work on the project as before. And it's because before I was just tempted to always open my editor and work on something. I felt like what needed to happen was if I could just write some more code and add this one more feature, only I can do this thing. This was the best thing I could do for the project, and it turns out that it wasn't. So this was helping me to identify this product gap in Mirage, which was really about communicating to people what the priorities were and if a bug fix was coming. And this issue triage really helped solve this issue of prioritization. Now the next gap was the docs. And the docs are pretty good for Mirage, but there's also some things that bother me about them. First, there was this issue of version documentation, and Mirage had it, but it was always something I had to do manual, and so that was tough. We didn't have search on Mirage docs ever, so that's just like something that you would expect as a developer, referencing a library's documentation. And there was also lots of things that ended up getting built in Mirage, but were never documented because it was hard to document them, and also, you know, we never set up auto-documenting from source code. So you might have heard about this project I'm working on with Dan Freeman and Chris Garrett and some others. It's called Ember CLI add-on docs. And this was kind of our way to answer this problem, to make it easier for everyone to have better doc sites. And so this is add-on docs documentation site, and you can see in the top right, there's search, there's version documentation. On the left, we have an API reference, and all of these are generated automatically from comments in the source code. So this is kind of solving the problem for everyone in the add-on community. But the idea is once I'm ready to ship a 1.0 Mirage, I'll be able to just move my docs over to this and kind of fix that product gap. So again, just like in the software we build at work, the product is not always about the code. And in open source, that might look different, right? It might mean a great documentation site or giving meetup talks about your project, but it's about more than just the code. So that's add-on docs. And you know, in the spirit of the conference, we're talking about what's easy in Ember, right? And when I first heard about this theme, I thought about things that I thought were easy in Ember. And my first idea was things like, okay, it's easy to build components in Ember. Like Ember makes it really easy to build great UIs because of the component abstraction. Or it's easy to do testing and deployment in Ember, right? There's some things at the technical level that Ember makes really easy about these things. But thinking about product a lot over the last 2 years has made me kind of ask the question, how can we make it easy to build great products in Ember? And what kinds of things can we do to help software teams have better processes and end up with better products for their users? Add-on docs is one example of something that makes it easier to build great add-ons. And so kind of a challenge I have for everyone here is to think about what other shared solutions can we make to help teams succeed in this area. So, in closing, why am I telling a room full of coders to stop coding and learn about product? Listen, I love coding. Like, I've been working on this presentation a lot, And next week, I'm not going to have a talk to prepare for, and I can't wait to open my editor and start coding again. Like, it was hard for me to work on this and not work on all the cool open source projects I'm working on. So I get it. The thing is, a coder that knows product is deadly. Product will change how you code. It will change the code you write. It will change when you think it's appropriate to write code or not. Product will give you the tools to ask smart questions and push back when you're just being given marching orders. Product will make it clear when you should close your editor and organize your GitHub issues, or open up Sketch and do some prototyping. Product lets you do a root cause analysis on the fundamental problems you're facing at work. So, learn product and stop throwing code at your product app. If you like these ideas and you want to learn more, these are two of my favorite books on product: The Lean Startup by Eric Ries and Creativity Inc. by Ad Ketmel. Thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it.